Witchers, welcome back to the Witcher Lorecast. This is your host, Tom, or Robots, and I'm here with Toasty, who is still lacking on sleep because work is crazy. Why do we gotta work, Toasty? Why can't we just play video games all day?
Wish.
Yeah, that'd be nice. But hey, welcome back, everybody. We are getting back on the whole geography thing because we're talking about Cintra today, which seems like an important location. If you're somebody who got into The Witcher from watching the TV series, Cintra is a location that they go back to multiple times, fought over. There's a lot going on there. So we figured this would be a good focus for an episode. So, Toasty, where do we start? Where do we start with Cintra?
So Cintra, or as you probably heard in recent episodes, Cintria, or if it's the show, Zintrea. Is one of the northern kingdoms located south of Sodden, Riverdale, and the Great River Yaruga.
Yeah, it's on the southern part of the sets of kingdoms, the southwestern side on the coast. Yeah, it's northern part of like right where Nilfgaard is. Yeah. Pushing up into that territory.
It was like one of the most southernmost, which put them as a prime target for Nilfgaard whenever they came in. Mm-hmm. Although there was obviously ulterior motives behind that.
Yes. So. Yeah. Which, surprise, Ciri has something to do with this, and Emir and all that stuff. But it says here that the type of government is a hereditary monarchy. And we've seen, side note here, we've seen that it's not just a monarchy led by men, that sometimes women and queens end up in charge of the monarchy. So it's not just a patriarchal.
Much to the advisor's disdain, of course, but it still happens. And, shout out Calanthe, because she was the real boss.
yeah, she was definitely the boss woman. But it was a sovereign kingdom until Nilfgaard, of course, came in and took it. And the ruler house was Raven.
The House of Raven. We're going to talk about that a little bit when we get to like the history part of it. I don't know if those sneezes are coming through. My apologies.
No problem. But after that, of course, it was ruled by a Nilfgaardian governor who oversaw the area. So what else do we know about governmental info?
So its commander-in-chief is the marshal position, just a military rank, among the quite different ones among different kingdoms and whatnot. So, specifically in Cintra, the marshal is the one who kind of led all that stuff, led the Cintran army, of course.
They're just called an army, right?
Yeah. And then, they had their own Cintran intelligence agency, the CIA.
The CIA, yeah. That just clicked in my head too. That's funny.
Actually, funnily enough, whenever I was typing this up, the document was like, "Don't you mean the Central Intelligence Agency?" No, no, it's the Cintran. Trying to correct me. So
yeah, I find this interesting because this is one of those details about some of the kingdoms in the Witcher universe, in that they don't just have individuals. Like you read the Game of Thrones books, Song of Ice and Fire. There's always an individual who happens to have a network of spies or agents or whatever, but it doesn't seem super formalized. It's more like the area of a specific person, and that's just kind of the thing they do. It's
kind of like with Game of Thrones with Littlefinger,
right,
and
Varys, right. And in these organizations, in these kingdoms, they have specific organizations for intelligence. It's not just somebody that the king relies on to get their information. It's an entire,
and they do have
structure.
Examples of that kind of thing. I mean, we know Dijkstra. He's got, Dijkstra's that whole same concept.
But it's it's more formalized. I think that's the point, is that it's actually called the intelligence agency or whatever for each of the kingdoms, as opposed to it's just Dijkstra is the guy that we just rely on for this.
Yeah.
He is in fact in charge of that organization. It's much bigger than just a person. So I always thought that was interesting, worth pointing out.
Yeah. So the capital is, of course, Cintra, as is the theme for most of these places. The capital city, same name as the
kingdom.
Kingdom.
Yeah, kingdom, country.
Yeah. They officially speak the common speech because, as we know, Cintra is rather racist. So,
yeah, right. They're not going to be speaking Elvish. Yeah.
This is interesting because they have like so many of these or whatever. Generally, they're just known as like one denomination or whatever as far as like their title. But Cintrans are known as Cintrans, Cintrians, or Cintries.
Yeah, all three of these show up, which is weird. You'd think it would be standardized.
Yeah. The official currency is I don't know why, but like I've been looking at this word, thinking ducat for so long, and then I like realized today as I was doing that, I was like, it's a ducat. This is like an actual type of. It's a ducat.
Oh, it's okay. But, is that the pronunciation?
But like, yeah, and I was just like, but for like, I was looking at it, and this like, I guess it's just the Americanized like perception of words is that you see that like the U position like that.
Yeah, there's only one consonant.
U,
right? So. Yeah, it's a long U because of a singular C before the next vowel, the A. So it looks like ducat instead of ducat.
Yeah.
We'll duck it. Let's keep moving.
I must be tired because I actually laughed at that.
I'm getting points for this one. I'm chalking up points on my little
and then
board.
They use the Nordling pantheon, so for their religious purposes.
Okay.
So Cintra's neighbors are Sodden, Brugge, and the Nilfgaard province of Nazir. When Emarvar Imris proclaimed false Ciri queen, he also named her Princess of Brugge, Duchess of Sodden, heir of Skellige, and sovereign of Atra and Abyara. This made all of those areas technically considered territories or vassals under the control of Cintra.
Right, right. This goes back to that whole, but we talked about this a number of episodes ago, this idea that in order to conquer a certain location in, say, I don't know, you go back several hundred years in Europe, for example, you had to have some sort of justification to argue that you had some sort of lineage rights to rule there based on your bloodline or whatever, right? And so what he's doing is he's basically saying like Ciri should be the ruler of these places because she has a claim. They're called claims. And of course that gives him the right to invade and try to take them over. So
yeah, that gives him claim. So which was really the point of him doing it.
Right.
Because he wanted to control. So harkening back to what you said a little bit ago, despite the kingdom's tradition of married-in men automatically inheriting the throne if the previous king is dead, despite a living queen, Cintra, like the rest of the southern kingdoms, raises boys and girls like the elves do. They're all taught how to fight, ride a horse, and go hunting from the time they're children, regardless of gender.
So that's one thing they share with the elves, even though they hate the elves a lot culturally, but they actually kept this tradition from the elves, this idea of not creating gender differences in the way you raised your children or who should be able to rule a kingdom.
Which does kind of give like a bit of context because unfortunately it's in my perception. And I think this is kind of the general setting of it, was that it seemed like Calanthe like really played up all that stuff and like seemed like she had to work real hard to get to like that level so that like people wouldn't judge her for being a woman, because of course we know that she was, queen, and it was she stood out as like an outlier there just because like her husband passed and she didn't have like a male heir there to like inherit, so like it went to her even though people didn't want it to, but it did. I assume that she kind of had to like play the part and play it up, the like masculine kind of perceived things, just because
she had to prove that she could do it just like a man could. But so
like,
she would go to war, for example, Like she would actually be on a battlefield leading her men in the field, and maybe women. I'm not sure 100% sure about that, but leading her soldiers at least in the field and showing that, yes, I can wield a sword, I can lead an army just like a man can. Like there's no reason I can't rule this country the way anyone else could. But
to say that like she was just raised to like be able to do that stuff, to like it's like, okay, no, there's just natural stuff. Like it came naturally to her because she was raised in that same, like with the same skill set as the men were. So I thought, it was cool.
Right. Cool, and that's not to take away from any of, we had the Calanthe episode previously, but not to take away any of the actual having to go do it and prove herself out in the world. And I'm sure it was quite the climb in some people's opinions who were trying to shoot her down.
So moving on to the coat of arms, kind of national emblem section there. I did offer a little bit of a snippet for the live stream. That's specifically the image that Tom is going to be showing, I think.
Yeah, it's not coming up. Hold on, give me a second.
Is the coat of arms, but there isn't a whole lot of difference between the coat of arms and the flag. It's just like the flag is just kind of a stretched version. So like, just imagine that, but on like a rectangle, essentially.
Yeah.
And for a description for those who are listening to the podcast only, it is a blue shield with 3 specifically, because we've been doing this stuff, learned that those are lion passant.
It's very French,
but yeah, basically just a very stylized like lion, yellow lions on them, because, as we know, the lions of Cintra, that is kind of their big thing. And it does come with this little snippet. For time immemorial, in the kingdom of Cintra's coat of arms, 3 golden lions on azure have been. They say that under this very emblem, the ancestors of Cintrans entered the Yaruga mouth ages ago, and that this very emblem was adopted as the coat of arms by their chieftain. The House of Ravens Serbans used thes arms in days of yore, and such they are now Adayes?
Adayes, yeah, Adayes. And I'm going to look that up because I don't know. A wild and exciting undertaking, not necessarily lawful.
Okay. Azure, 3 lions passant, or onely that since the reign of King Coram II, the lions are crowned.
This has got some like weird old-timey kind of phrasing going on.
It's like a specific like excerpt from Coat of Arms of the respectable royal and knightly houses, their blazoned in history, dynastic descriptions, Cintran dynasty, Coram II.
Yeah, that's where this weird. And it specifically mentions the House of Ravens Serbans. So I have a feeling that at some point in history, this is giving us a glimpse of some of the lineages. The lineage of the House of Ravens, House of Serbans were combined into whoever the leadership ended up being.
Yeah. I have a explanation for that, but they're just going to have to wait to hear it.
We're going to have to get there in a little bit. Let's go talk about our patrons, and then we'll be right back.
Very well. Let us get this over with. Something has infested my vineyard.
Mm-hmm. Great. Let me go prepare my something oil then.
All right, here we are in the middle of the show where we get to thank our patrons, and no new patrons this week, but we do have our higher vampers. Words are hard, friends. Should I hit the words? All right, words are hard. All right, higher vampires. Ben of Temeria, Cody and Carly S. and Jared M. Thank you for your support and my inability to read. Appreciate all of you guys. All 46 of our patrons. We're up to 46 currently. Thank you for your support. Patreon.com/Witcher Lorecast. If you want to go check it out, you can get ad-free episodes for very cheap. You can join us for some of the higher tiers and get stickers or new designs, which are rolling out next month for t-shirts and stickers. That'll be a thing. So stay tuned for that. We'll have some announcements next month on that one. And you can also join us.
How many patrons did you say?
46. Is it filtering funny? No, that's 40.
I don't think we have 46.
No, we got 16.
Do we?
We have 16.
I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
What happened?
Yeah.
What
So for some
happened
reason,
here?
Patreon has been filtering differently. Okay. So our current hire vampires include Ben of Temeria and Jared M. I thought that looked different. I was like, I don't know. Maybe somebody re-signed up.
I was like, what?
What happened?
I was like, didn't we have like 7? What do we have? 46? I was like, Tom is not.
We've had 46. We currently have 16. It's a weird filter thing. But anyway, we're doing some new designs. That stuff will be out next month. You'll get to see it in a few weeks. And if you'd like to join us for our patron chat this month, it will be, and we're doing this episode a little bit late, but it's the last Monday of the month. So that is on the 30th. So 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific on the 30th. And feel free to chime in on the Discord. Let us know what you guys would like to discuss. But there's still time to sign up for Tier 4 if you'd like to join us on that. We also have a new review. This is from AceXC31 in the United States, who writes, "Fantastic 5 onions. I absolutely love this show. They will inundate you with information, perspective, and fun, despite how dark, tragic, and sometimes downright horrifying the Witcher universe can be. The host's personalities shine through in the way they talk about the content, how they talk to each other. So make sure to get your something oil ready because they smell of death, destiny, heroics, and heartbreak." Right. Yeah. Ace, thank you so much for that review. If you'd like to leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, even if you don't listen on Apple Podcasts, if you have an Apple account, you can still just look up the page and do that. We'll read it out on a future episode, or you can leave us a rating on Spotify or wherever you're getting this show. Drop us a rating. Or check out the YouTube channel.
Review, I guess in this case.
A 5 onion. Leave us a 5 onion review. Yeah, or you can even watch us on the YouTube channel. All the videos from the live feeds go up on the Witcher Lorecast YouTube, so you can look that up as well. Anyway, that's it for the middle of the show. Let's get on with the rest of the details about Cintra.
You smell of death and destiny, heroics and heartbreak.
It's onion.
Right, yeah.
It's onion. All right, let's dive into the ancient times. What do we know about Zintrea, as it was called back then?
Yeah. Gosh, man, this is rough. So once known as the Elven city of Zintria, Cintra was built on its ruins after the eastern expansion of humans approximately 500 years ago, and the abandonment of the city by the elves.
So this is like book lore. This isn't revised Witcher TV show nonsense.
Yeah, which I completely I included information about it, the current stuff from the show, and completely didn't think about adding stuff from Blood Origin because I guess my brain wanted to really forget it existed, but
according to Blood Origin, that the events of Blood Origin were 1,200 years in the past from like the current timeline that we're at in the books.
Yeah.
And so that's not 500 years ago. And then of course humans show up right then. So I don't know that the humans would have waited 700 years to start doing what they did. But we're going to stick with the book lore as the more canon lore. And then of course there's the TV show stuff that gets further and further away from that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's all we know about ancient times. Just like it had a different name. It was an elven city, and then it was ruined by the humans who took it over and seemingly bastardized the name.
Yeah, or just, I guess, made it more common. I don't know. I guess it's just like the process, the concept of like renaming things whenever you take them. I mean, like, with all like American expansion and stuff, or like that, whenever America was being founded, they kind of named all these things different, whatnot. So it's kind of like it. I mean, I guess it's nice that they kind of kept the concept of the name and just made it like changed it a little bit. But it's like in the United States, it's like places that are named after Native American tribes.
Mm-hmm. And of course, we say them in a very Anglicanized kind of way, and it's not the way that those tribes would have said those words. So it probably feels something like that.
Yeah. So moving forward to the House of Raven.
All right. So what is the House of Raven? What do we know about this?
So the House of Raven or House of Raven's servants, sometimes known as the Coram dynasty or simply the Servants, is a Cintran royal family descending from Servan, the first king of Cintra, whose name means raven in the Elder Speech.
Oh, so that's why they use both names. Because they basically mean the same thing.
It was founded in the 11th century by King Servan as the ruling dynasty of his newly established kingdom of Cintra. Talking about their coat of arms, dating back to the 760s, it was used by the chieftain who led the first Nordlings to the mouth of the Yaruga.
Wow, so this dates back a while.
Yeah. King Servan married Princess Becca of Nazir and had many children with her. The eldest son, Corel, inherited the throne and by marrying Shiva of Sodden, introduced the right to Soddener fief belonging to us, the descendants of Shiva, blood of the blood and bone of the bone of the rightful princes of Sodden. In official decrees.
What? What? Wow. Okay.
Basically,
this is old timey sounding stuff.
Yeah, it basically translates just to like, because they have their descendants now have the blood of Sodden royalty and Cintran royalty. They are like leaders of both, essentially.
Got it. It's combined.
Yeah.
I don't know, rights to those lands. So Steve Carell, his first son,
yes,
did this, and it's called Soddener Fife belonging to us, the descendants of Eschiva, blood of the blood and bone of the bone of the rightful princes of Sodden. It's weird. Okay. Thanks, Steve Carell.
Fancy ways of saying very simple concepts, but
yeah.
The pair's firstborn son, King Coram the First, once went to visit King Egon of Lyria along with his brother Karan. I don't know if you'll notice, there seems to be a theme with how these names start.
They're all C names. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
There, the two fell in love with Egon's twin daughters, Impecca and Rigoberta.
Impecca? Is that a car? It sounds like a
Impala. It does sound like a car, though, to be fair.
Rigoberta, that's... I think I'd rather be Impecca than Rigoberta.
Yeah. That's what we should call Rob.
Rob the princess. You're now Rigoberta the princess. In chat. Hi, Rob.
Impecca and Rigoberta, and shortly after, two weddings followed. Coram first married Rigoberta and returned to Cintra. Karan stayed with Impecca and became king of Lyria after Egon, thus founding the Lyrian branch. So we're starting to see them split off into multiple branches. It's just like, fun fact, this House of Raven servants or whatever branches off into like multiple kingdoms. So they have lines in Temeria, and you obviously with Lyria, Rivia is pretty closely tied in there too, but they have lines in Rivia too.
Yeah.
Quite a bit. He then introduced the three lions into the Lyrian emblem. At some point, the lions of Cintra became part of Rivia's blazon as well.
Interesting. Yeah, this is very European. Very like by the year 1800, the king of so and so was also half brothers with this person, and everybody was related, right?
Yep. Which we already knew that. We knew like with Meve being like cousin to Calanthe, and then also Foltest, like they're all got ties in there. Most of the Cintran royal family and its branches died in the slaughter of Cintra fighting Nilfgaard, with the only exception being Ciri, who went missing, as we know, and whose place in the political game of power was then taken by an imposter, or the false Ciri.
Right.
The Lyrian branch continued through Meve and her two sons.
Okay. Man, we have to do a whole episode on the false Ciri. Like that whole thing. Can you imagine being like the fake princess? Woof. Like, oh, that must be stressful. Like any day now, somebody might want to just murder me because I'm false. But I didn't put myself up to this. Right. Okay,
They're like hunting, like they were all hunting Siri too, kind of at this point.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, cool. But you're also like very securely in the position of, the strongest empire in the world with Nilfgaard,
it's
because
still stressful.
Emir
man.
wants to keep you close, not only because, by keeping you close, he keeps safe the claims to these lands, but also he keeps safe the chance of someone figuring out that, hey, you're not the right person.
You're not really her.
So-
I know what she looks like. That's not you. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we have this section here about the Northern Wars. How about I give it a read and you can kind of chime in?
ahead.
It says in 1263, after the continued expansion of the Nilfgaardian Empire to the Amel Mountains, Emperor Emir von Emrys began a full-scale invasion of the north, which we know clearly about at this point, beginning with the kingdom of Cintra. Just a reminder, Cintra was the first of the northern kingdoms to be attacked and go down.
Yep.
The Nilfgaardian army crossed the Marnadal stairs and crushed the Cintrian army at the mouth of the mountain pass, which became later known as the Battle of Marnadal. They continued north and slaughtered the kingdom's fortified capital, killing nearly the entire royal family, with Queen Calanthe committing suicide rather than being captured. That part of the TV show was accurate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we even see the Battle of Marnadal and like that whole like mountain pass area. So
yeah, many of the capital's residents were left homeless and fled to nearby Verden, Temeria, Bruges, and Skellige. After marching north and being defeated at the Battle of Sodden Hill, the Nilfgaardian army marched south again and took control of the occupied lands of Cintra and Upper Sodden. So remember the Battle of Sodden Hill? They weren't able to beat the mages who kind of kept them out before the rest of the armies showed up from the northern armies, and then they had to pull back. After the Second Nilfgaard War, the kingdom was nominally an independent state, but was actually ruled by Emperor Emir of Nilfgaard because of his marriage to Empress Cyrilla, also known as the False Ciri.
yeah, and then of course, as we know, like luckily luckily this isn't actually so, like, he's not actually married to his daughter, but it's still creepy.
Yeah, it's still creepy. But in a Game of Thrones fashion, these things actually happened in the real world, and sometimes they were necessary in order to maintain your claims to stuff or whatever. So people would do all sorts of things. Yeah, gross. So what else do we know?
As always with some of these, like with the stuff that we do see, and of course separate it because between canon and then the Netflix series stuff, two different like storylines essentially. So of course don't blend those. But as we mentioned before, with Blood Origin, like I'll just say we know that it was like the big like height of the like golden era of elves. They had their whole like Zintrian empire with their clans, and then we see the events of it where the royal family is killed by Balor and Merwin, and then the events that kind of transpire where the seven get the group or get the people, the lowborns, to rebel against the crown. And that's kind of the end of that. And then we don't really know what happens after that, because it's, the end of the show. But we see humans come along. So I imagine, with that, humans are probably moving in to make, some of this stuff happen and taking over way sooner than 500 years ago. So you just assume that this is probably the same. It probably blends into this timeline that we know so far of the regular stuff, just with an extended period of 700 years on top of it. It feels that way, especially with the whole like peasant revolt thing. The organization of the city would have been chaotic, and then all of a sudden all of these humans on the shore, and we do see like that one or two crashed ships or whatever it was with the people all laying around in the sand. But that's just a tip of the iceberg. Like there were a lot more humans showing up than just that. And of course they would have been looking for places to live and jobs to do and ways to survive and food. So to say that things were peaceful once the humans and the elves all met, it's probably not accurate. Yeah. and so, and as Tom said there before, most of this info is still true for Cintra and the Netflix series, or has yet to happen enough to have an idea as to how it might turn out. Just because, moving into season 3, like we're kind of at the middle point. Second Nilfgaardian War hasn't started yet. So we still have yet to see how that's going to play out. Personally, for me, I'm hoping that we move away from, Mir marrying Ciri. I'm hoping maybe the plot, obviously they're changing a lot of stuff, but
right.
Like personally, that for me is one thing that I don't really like that aspect, because I mean, like, I can get over the marrying your family stuff, but just I put a hard line on whenever it's between parent and child.
Yeah, that's,
and also and the child. I mean, Ciri is fucking. She's a minor at
right. She's also
too,
young.
Which still makes it even more uncomfortable.
Right. Yeah. It's one thing to be I don't know. It's it's funny that we have to talk about the shades of this, right? It's all right. Well, your cousins.
I mean, I'm not even gonna lie. House of Dragon
cousins. All right.
You're Daemon and Rhaenyra and House of Dragon. Didn't care.
And but uncle and niece. Okay. Also,
it was uncomfortable in the younger part, but
once she was older, it became a little bit less uncomfortable.
In the younger part, she technically was already an adult. They just didn't make a fine point on it because it was they didn't show the aging process. So right,
but she was also still a very young adult, and in some places wouldn't have been considered an adult in the modern world. There's a lot there that's just really pushing the boundaries, and then you end up with the siblings, and then that's even kind of grosser. Yeah, but then the idea of parental and child, no, that's it just gets worse as you get closer and closer in relationships. Yeah, I agree. So I guess we're gonna have to see. They did already have the whole fake Cintra thing in the episode where Geralt is there and he goes to claim her, and then they show her the wrong girl or whatever. Well,
that's also part of the books. Is that Calanthe does do the fake Ciri in that situation or whatever, but Geralt is. Just because of the draw of his child of destiny is able to figure it out.
Right.
So,
so they've already hinted that could be a continued concept.
Yeah.
That they move on with.
But there is, however, one major addition to the Cintra timeline that is not in the books, and that is the whole thing of season 2 with the staging ground of the elves, how it became kind of this refugee city for the elves, because Fringilla saw them as a useful tool. And granted, to give Fringilla credit, she did genuinely like and become friends with Francesca. But I mean, the overall idea was still using the elves to as an advantage, because they know the areas of the Northern Kingdoms better, and they can work in smaller units or whatever. Essentially, the footing, the first steps for making of the Scoia'tael.
Right. So you're saying that they never actually, in the book lore, they never actually were brought to the city of Cintra.
If they were, there was no point made on it. So
it wasn't mentioned, right?
Right. So it's safer to say that, no, it didn't happen.
Right.
But
the idea of them working with the elves is still a thing. We just don't have the moving of the elves to Cintra.
The kind of making Cintra this refugee city, essentially, because they did get pushed there also just after with some of the elves working against the Empire, those early parts, everyone pushing the elves out or slaughtering them or incarcerating them or so.
Right. So that's about it, though. That's basically everything that we know about Cintra from the past. And this is part of why we see the writers. I mean, it's not the only reason, but it's one of the justifications for why they think that they have these good ideas of redoing some of the lores, because there's big holes in the history. But what's funny is that they're not filling the holes. They're just moving around the parts we already know in ways that don't necessarily make it better.
And then greatly altering the stuff we do know away from the source material, which is weird. I don't have a problem with them filling in the holes. Like season 1, following, like we already kind of knew about some Ciri's journey in that, like with the dryads and stuff. Granted, they did it differently because Geralt didn't get involved there, but like we kind of already knew. But then seeing kind of like her just like with this like elf dude, it was nice. It wasn't like anything that was going to be like, oh man, this is like the best writing I've ever seen. But it was nice. It was nice.
It was fine. It filled it out in a way that made her journey kind of make sense. The finding of a friend and like all of that stuff. Yeah.
But the Yennefer stuff, I thoroughly enjoyed all the Yennefer stuff that they showed us, because this is obviously like they don't show us all that in the books or tell us any of that in the books really. Yennefer is kind of like still like an enigma in like her origins, because it's a bad past for her. She doesn't want to talk about it. And she's, they kind of mysterious and aloof still.
She's not really a point of view character, especially in those early books. Like you just don't get that.
So, and a lot of the stuff we do find out about Yennefer is from the perspective of Geralt figuring it out. Right. So it was nice to see all that. I thoroughly enjoyed all of that. Like kind of how, she developed to like, wanting power more than anything else, and then quickly growing to regret it. It was cool.
Right.
I did enjoy that.
And it made sense for her personality. It absolutely, it's weird. It's like they add that stuff in and it's like, no, this is great. This part's fine. There's nothing wrong. They're just filling in the gaps that we weren't 100% sure of. But when they start changing stuff, that's where it gets like, why change the stuff we do know? Just leave that part the same. Like, stop. Yeah. But anyway, we could go on and on about this. But that's all we know about Cintra. And next week we've got our patron chat coming up. So let us know, patrons, what you guys would like to discuss. We can come up with some crazy topic or talk about whatever. Anything's possible. So share some thoughts and we'll vote on it. I think that's all we got, Toasty, for this week. You good?
Yeah.
You good? All right. You got anything else you want to share before we head out?
Follow us at The Witcher Lorecast on Twitter.
So excited about that.
Sorry.
He's tired.
Like I had
Sleepy
that one,
guy.
like, you get that like wave of just.
You rallied. Like, you rallied there for a little bit. Good job.
Yeah. And then if you like cyberpunk universe, I do the Cyberpunk Lorecast with Genesis that gets released on Sundays. And I also do the Cyberpunk Red Actual Play podcast with the Family 4 and Almighty Crit Gang, Cyberpunk apostrophe D.
Cyberpunked?
Yep.
Fool? You should say fool at the end.
No.
You've been cyberpunked, fool.
No.
I mean, that's cooler.
I refuse.
It sounds cooler.
It doesn't.
It doesn't. Okay, maybe it doesn't. Yeah, go check out those shows. Go to robotsradio.net for links to all of those shows and all of the rest of my shows. And if you like the Lorecast style, I do a variety of different Lorecasts, including Lord of the Rings and Mass Effect and Elder Scrolls and Fallout and Starfield, which is coming out soon, hopefully. But that's what we got going on. Thanks for hanging out. We'll be back next week with our patrons. We'll see all of our patrons on Monday night. And you can come join us for the live feed over at twitch.tv/robotsradio. All right, guys. Thanks for being here, chat. Thanks for being here as well. Toasty, have a good week. And until next week,
stay safe on the path.
We'll see you guys then. Bye, everybody. Thanks for tuning into the Witcher Lorecast. We'd love to hear about your experiences with the games and the books and the TV series and all your thoughts on everything. Please check out the Robots Radio Discord and follow us on Twitter at Witcher Lorecast.
You've been listening to a Robots Radio podcast. Smart shows for interesting people. Check out all the shows at robotsradio.net.